is going to be the guide for Rift RC1 to RC20 without Robin. If you have Robin, check out the Robin clears that I have. Those are definitely much easier if you have her, but without her, it still works pretty well. I'm going to be taking a look at 3 different teams. Mercedes and Hazel will be in all 3 of the teams, and then besides that, it'll be either Carrot plus Aramintha, Carrot plus Surin, or Surin plus Aramintha. And the different combinations of the teams all have their pluses and minuses. So I think Carrot plus Aramintha is the more stable one to me. There's a lot less RNG from what I felt. The downside is that the RC8, you don't really have a device to use. None of them really work. And then at RC15, Aramintha does get the S2 device, which helps a lot, though Carrot can't utilize it. Aramintha plus Surin. Surin has a lot of RNG on her because a lot of her value is weighed in the debuff extension on her S3, and if that gets resisted, then unlucky. Upside is that Surin does utilize the Thief device at RC8 really well. And then Aramintha can use the Burn device at RC2, she just doesn't get that big of a boost from it because of the debuff caps and whatnot. And then Surin plus Carrot is the final team. This is pretty much just the cheapest possible team, because then you wouldn't have to build Aramintha. Surin benefits from the RC8 device, but then at RC15 you have no device to use with this team. So you can figure out which team you want to use for their usage for these units. Carrot also gets used as a potential option. She's not mandatory, there's a lot of units you could use there, but Carrot works for Trial of the Constellation, hooray, Nightmare difficulty. And more importantly, you're going to be using Carrot at RC21 anyways. So that is something to keep in mind, because at RC21, it's either Carrot plus Charlotte or Carrot plus Mercedes duo. Aramintha, her only usage right now is really just Hall of Trials, Abyssal Euphony rotations. You'll use her once every 4 months, or I guess twice every 4 months technically. And then Surin, she has no usage, it's literally just here, RC1 to RC20, and you stop using her at RC20. For the controllers, I'm going to be showing these runs with all of these devices disabled. So the only device that's going to be working is the RC1 device, whichever one I'm picking between Burn and Bleed. However, I cannot turn off the damage scaling, so I'm going to be doing way more damage than you'll see in your runs. That is just something to keep in mind. For the devices, we have the Burn or the Bleed one. This one, depending on which team you're using, you'll swap between them. RC8, Surin will use the Thief one, Carrot plus Aura doesn't use any, and then regardless of which team you're using, actually same thing, this one is regardless of which team you're using. This one, RC15, regardless of which team you're using, you'll be using the Mage Hero Skill 2 device. And then RC21, we swap over to the Carrot duo, which will always, or the Carrot plus Charlotte or Carrot plus Mercedes duo, that will always look like this. That is it for all of the introductory stuff, and now we can take a look at the teams. Let's start off with the Carrot and Aramintha team. The upside to this team is that we're going to have to use Carrot anyways for RC21, so if you're willing to build Aramintha, then you can just run this. For our Rift controllers, we have the Burn device for RC1. At RC8, none of these work, so it doesn't matter. I would just pick the Night one, because we'll be using this at RC21 later anyways. And then at RC15, we will for now use the 2 Burn effects one. This will slightly increase the damage your Aramintha deals. And I don't have any plans on testing this, but at RC15 maybe, if you build F Mercedes, I'm not sure if that would let you one-shot or not. Maybe I will test it actually, we'll see. But then at RC21, we will pick up this one when assigning 2 allies. Whatever, that's the Carrot plus Charlotte duo one, plus we'll also swap over to this. But for now, let's just go ahead and I won't use this one for now, we'll just be using the RC1 device, and we'll see how it goes. We can take a look at everyone's stats, starting off with Carrot. For Carrot, you want her with around 154 speed. I think the speed can be adjusted by a few, and it's okay. You also want 90 effectiveness. You want 105 effectiveness at the end, but Carrot's skill tree gives everyone 5 effectiveness, and Hazel gives everyone 10. So we can go as low as 90 with those runes. If you don't have the runes, then you need a little bit more. You also want enough bulk to frontline her. I have her in the front line right now, and this is just because that way the boss, when it does its single target attack, it will burn you. If you don't have the bulk for it, then you can just move her to the side and put Hazel in the front. But since we can just give her Proof of Valor, it's not that bad. Also, this bulk tanks fine without POV, but if you have an attack boosting artifact like Frantic Flight, I would use it just for the free attack. Mages don't have a lot of attack boosting artifacts, so it is pretty rough though. And then for her skill enhances, max S2, +6 on S3 for the burn chance. And then in her skill tree, you're going to want the free attack, free defense, and free HP. This one gives effectiveness to all allies by 5%. And you're also going to want this one here, increases the S3 burn chance, plus this one gives you 20% damage reduction if the caster's HP is 80% or less. And I guess I can show the gear pieces here. You don't really need attack set, you can just use broken set. It's just because I had this. I wouldn't really recommend crafting attack set at all, to be honest. Next up is Mascot Hazel. For Mascot Hazel, I'll start with her artifact. You need a healing artifact. The sustain in this run is pretty rough. Rod of Amaryllis is nice because we are on the not front slot. If you're in the front slot, since the boss will be hitting you every single turn, I would instead recommend Touch of Rekos. You'll see me using this in the other runs where I have Hazel in the front line. But Rod of Amaryllis otherwise, and if you're missing both of those, you could try Shamadra Staff, increase your healing amount. You might also just need more bulk on your units. I would highly recommend a healing artifact of some sort though. Her stats honestly don't matter too much. You just want 178 speed, and then if you need more healing, her healing scales based off attack, so you can give her more attack. And this bulk is honestly only really necessary if you have her in the front line. Her gear is here, but it's not really anything special. And then for her skill enhances, max S2 and max S3 to maximize your healing. For her skill tree, you're gonna want to grab, might as well get the free HP and then the free speed ones. This one here heals all allies when using S2. This one you don't have to get, it's just 5% healing when using S1. And this is free effectiveness for all fire allies, and free attack for all fire allies, so I would get those runes. Next up is Aramintha. For Aramintha, for her EE, I have her on the detonate one. This one is better, the burn chance one, because Carrot already detonates for us, so we don't really need two detonators. Maybe when we have the RC15 device, if you go F Mercedes, I guess. But generally, you're going to use the burn chance one. It's only 10% though, so it's not a huge deal. I kind of want the 1 speed, and I don't have a 10 speed one for the other one, so I'll just be using this. For artifact, we're just using Warhorn, boost attack of all allies. Like I mentioned with Carrot, you could give Carrot like this, since it's an attack boosting artifact, and give Aramintha another one. Or if you're struggling to give enough effectiveness actually, you could run an artifact that boosts effectiveness or something. Though this only boosts on a single target attack, so this doesn't work, but there's some other artifacts, like I think Twilight Calamity or something, that boosts your effectiveness. Whatever works, I guess this kind of boosts your effectiveness. And then for her stats, it's just 178 speed. And the same thing as Carrot, 90 effectiveness to 105, depends how many of the skill tree runes you have. A little bit of bulk, like you don't even need this much, just enough to not die. Aramintha gives herself a giant barrier, so I don't even think she needs like any, to be honest. And then the rest of your stats going into attack. You also want the +2 her S2 for the cooldown, +5 her S3 for the burn chance, and then S1 is optional. You honestly don't need this, it's only 15%. Lastly is Mercedes. Mercedes, her skills, I just have them maxed out for Earth Expedition. For Imprint, I leave on team because Carrot and Aramintha are doing most of the damage anyways. And also hitting 2 units with this is going to add up to a little bit more than just hitting herself. For Artifact, instead of Magic for Friends, I'm using Call Aldra. That's just because Magic for Friends, if it procs turn 1 and the boss gets burned, it kind of ruins your run because you'll seal one of the authorities a bit too early. So we're using Call Aldra instead. For her stats, 192 speed is what we're aiming for. You want a little bit of bulk since we're lacking the crit damage reduction from Magic for Friends. And then everything else is just max crit chance and then give her attack and crit damage. You can see her gear here. This is honestly a little bit, some of these are pretty well rolled. Averages out to 96, which is a little bit high, so your damage might be a little bit lower. Now we can take a look at the run and see how it goes.
빨리 해치워버립시다. 이제 푹 쉬어. 당신에 대한 분석은 모두 끝냈습니다. 많이 뜨거울 텐데. 어쩐다? 계획대로군요. 상황을 보아하니 제가 이길 가능성이 높습니다. 실력 발휘 좀 해볼까? 서둘러주세요. 이거답니다. 특별히 고안해낸 대책을 보여드리죠. 이제 푹 쉬어. 공포의 시야 개방하라. 빨리 해치워버립시다. 많이 뜨거울 텐데. 어쩐다?
That's it for the run. We got about 35% left to go. And this run is subject to a bit of RNG because of Carrot S2. Sometimes you'll burn, sometimes you won't, but generally it's fine. I would say, factoring into consideration that we have to use Carrot at RC21, this is probably the team that I would aim for if you can. Now let's take a look at the Aramintha plus Surin version. This is really just if the Carrot team's not working for you for some reason, then you can try this. Because after I finished all of my testing, I ended up liking the Aramintha plus Carrot team more, but I already had the tuning for this setup thanks to help from Ed, so we're just going to show it anyways. For the controllers, between the bleed damage and the burn damage, I'm pretty sure we get more from bleeds. Burn does like twice the damage of a bleed, but we end up dropping a lot more bleeds in this, I'm pretty sure. You can check which one you like more, I'm just going to go with bleed. At RC8, we're going to pick up this middle one. After a Thief Hero in the back row uses S2, extends burn and bleed durations on the target by 1 turn. This does not work on the authorities, unfortunately, but it still does extend our burn and bleed at least. And then at RC15, we'll get this one. After a Mage Hero uses skill 2, inflicts 2 burn effects on the target for 2 turns. This is only going to work on Aramintha. For Mercedes, I would actually opt to not use this. There's like, you could go F Mercedes or something, but I don't like doing it here, just because the way Surin's AI works is not very friendly. She only S3s if there's bleeds. If you were going to go F Mercedes, I'd swap Surin to Carrot, and then at RC21 we would just swap over to this and do the Carrot plus Charlotte or Carrot plus Mercedes duo. So we're going to just use the bleed one for now. We can make sure the rest of these aren't going to be active, and we'll just be using the RC1 device. Now we can take a look at everyone's stats. Let's start off with Hazel. For Hazel, you want her about 178 speed, and then a decent bit of bulk because we have her in the front line. And if you're lacking healing, you can give her some attack too, because her healing scales with attack for some reason. Touch of Percus is really nice when you're frontlining her, because this will proc every single turn. If you don't have this, something like Rod of Amaryllis works fine, or if you're really desperate, you could use Shimadra Staff as a super budget option. And then I have her S2 and S3 maxed out. For her skill tree, you should get these free stats here. Get the healing on the S2. S1 healing is minimal, though it is nice. You could skip this if you want. And then get the free effectiveness for fire allies and free attack for fire allies. We can take a look at Aramintha. For Aramintha, you want her also about 178 speed. It's speed RNG with Hazel, but it's fine. And then 90 effectiveness, or it's 95 effectiveness because we don't have Carrot here, so it's just 10 effectiveness from Hazel's skill tree, so we want 95. And then after that, you just want the rest of your stats into attack. For EE, I like running the Detonate EE in this team, just because detonating the burns frees up more space for Surin to land some bleeds, and the burn detonation never really affects your run because Surin's extensions all come before the detonations. Then I have her on Warhorn just for the free attack to everybody. For enhances, +2 her S2 and +5 her S3. The S1 is pretty minimal, you don't really need to bother with it. Now for Mercedes. Mercedes, we can actually change her gear real quick. I'm going to give her Magic for Friends here because there's the issue in the Carrot team where when you go Magic for Friends, it kind of messes with your run a little bit because you are going to, like, I have to actually finish gearing because I kind of remember what I was using before. Like this, then was more like this. I think it was like this. You can go base bulk here because we are using Magic for Friends. And Magic for Friends is fine here because normally with Carrot the problem is that she burns the boss turn 1, but here we don't have Carrot, so Magic for Friends is fine. Even with the RNG procs, I've never had it do anything bad to my run. We want 192 speed, and then just max out your damage with all of her skills +15. Then for her imprints, if you don't have them yet, they're an unrecorded history at the bottom of the Book of Memories, and you can just run her with the attack % for a team. Lastly is Surin. For Surin, give her any attack boosting artifact. Thieves have a lot of these. There's Windrider, which is the one that you're most likely to have, probably. And then there's some other ones, I guess. Okay, Extra Turn is actually probably Troll. I would not do that. But there's some other ones, it's whatever. Just give her any sort of attack boosting artifact. I think Summer Hwayoung's artifact also boosts your attack if you have that. And then for her stats, she has way too much effectiveness here. You only need 95. And 157 speed is a nice point to be at. Give her a little bit of bulk. Rest of the stats into attack. I don't have any imprints for her, but when you imprint her, I would just self-imprint her. The free effectiveness helps out a bit. And because you need Surin in the back slot, so the only unit that would benefit from this is Hazel anyways, and Hazel's stats are probably one of the easier ones to do. Just keep in mind if you do team imprint her to lower Hazel's speed, so she's at the proper speed after the imprint. So make sure Surin is in the back slot. We don't have it active yet, but for RC8 you will need it active. And we can take a look at the run.
많이 뜨거울 텐데. 모든 게 파멸한다. 균열 너머로 허무의 지적까지. 이제 푹 쉬어. 어머나. 가올라라. 바이바이. 블레이저. 각오하시죠. 빨리 해치워 버립시다. 갑니다. 실력 발휘 좀 해볼까? 몰라요. 균열 너머로 허무의 지적까지. 새로 만들어줄까? 바이바이. 서둘러주세요. 부탁합니다.
It's actually probably the highest I've ever seen this team score. We got a little bit further ahead than the Carrot Aramintha version, though the variance on this team I normally see closer to 35%. Even though we damaged a little bit higher, I think just with the resources you save from going Aramintha plus Carrot, I still kind of prefer the first team because we'll be using Carrot RC21 anyways. But if you want a slightly better run and you want to build Surin or something, you could try running this team. There is RNG involved with this team though, because Surin's S3, the debuff extension, is not it is subject to 15%. So if it doesn't proc, your damage just poof, it's gone for that run pretty much. Also, her S3 activation condition, which I've mentioned, she only uses S3 if the boss has a bleed. And honestly, her cooldowns are on an awkward timing because her S2 is a 3-turn cooldown and then her S3 is a 4-turn cooldown. So there's a part in the fight where she does S2 and then S1 and then S3. If your S1 does not proc any bleeds, you are very sad. So the damage on this team, I would say, is pretty, varying. Also, Magic for Friends procs, but I would say this is about equal to the Aramintha plus Carrot team, just you have to build an extra unit. Lastly, let's take a look at the Surin plus Carrot team. This is pretty much the lowest, cheapest possible team. If you don't have Aramintha because she's not story summonable, you have no way to really get her. Not that I would necessarily recommend summoning for her anyways, just because her usage is pretty low. For your Rift controllers, I'm actually not 100% sure whether we're going Bleed or Burn here. Bleed does half the damage of Burn, but Surin is the one getting greater attack buff from Hazel, and she has way more attack with my current builds. So I'm not sure who I'm going to give it to. The thing about Carrot is she procs a burn on the boss every single turn with her S2. So that is contributing a lot of damage. We're just going to put Bleeds for now. You can check and see which one you like more. At RC8, we're going to pick up the After a Thief in the back row uses skill 2, extends burn and bleeds. This does not work on the authorities, unfortunately. It is only the burns and bleeds, but it is still a damage increase, so we're going to run it. At RC15, technically none of these work, Mercedes could technically use this if you give her effectiveness, though Surin's S3 AI is annoying. She only uses it if they have a blade. She does not care if they have other debuffs. So I'm not sure whether this would even be a damage increase, just because you're Surin with less S3 less. But it might be, just because the burn damage might outweigh any sort of damage increase you get from extending the authorities in the later parts. At the very start, you should be fine. Her first S3 should always go through. In which case, if you do go F Mercedes or something, you would go for the increased burn damage dealt. But RC21, you switch over to the Carrot plus Charlotte or Carrot plus Mercedes duos. And for now, we'll just turn these off, make sure none of them are working, and we'll just run with just the bleed damage. For their stats, we can start off with Carrot. I have Carrot a little bit faster for this run, just because we need people to take turns to actually hit the boss to seal the authorities. So Carrot is a little bit faster. You want to give her a bit of bulk so she can properly tank. And then 90 effectiveness because you have 5 from Carrot's skill tree and 10 from Hazel's skill tree. You want 105 in the end, so if you're missing the skill tree runes, make sure you have enough effectiveness. Rest of her stats going into attack. Then for her artifact, I have her holding Warhorn. This is just because mages have less attack boosting artifacts than thieves, so I'm giving Carrot Warhorn and having Surin hold the attack boosting artifact. For your skill enhances, +2 S2 and +6 the S3. And then for the skill tree, you're going to want to get the free attack, free defense, free HP, as well as the, if you need it, check if you need this much effectiveness, but 5 effectiveness for all allies, and then S3 burn chance and damage reduction. Next, we can take a look at Hazel. For Hazel, we've got her on Touch of Rekos. I'm actually going to swap this over to Rod of Amaryllis. Both of them work fine, to be honest. It's just because Carrot is in the front line, we'll be using Rod instead. And then for her stats, 178 speed. Her bulk doesn't really matter because she's not frontlining anymore. You can give her attack if you're struggling with healing, because her healing does scale based off of her attack for some reason. Max her S2 and max her S3 for extra healing. And then for her skill tree, HP, speed, speed, S2 healing. You could probably skip the HP technically, but you're going to want it for other content anyways. I have the S1 healing, though this probably isn't mandatory, and you're going to want the free effectiveness for fire allies, and the free effectiveness for attack allies. Or the free attack for fire allies. Next we can take a look at Mercedes. Mercedes, I have her at 187 speed. You want a little bit of bulk because we're going Call Ultra. Magic for Friends does bad things due to Carrot's S2 burning the boss immediately. So we're going Call Ultra, give her a little bit of bulk to make up for the lack of the crit damage reduction, and then the rest of the stats into attack, crit chance, and crit damage. Make sure you get her imprints from Unrecorded History at the bottom of the Book of Memories, and then I have her skills maxed out for Fire Expedition. Then we have Surin. For Surin, all she needs is to +3 on her S3 for the -1 turn cooldown. And then for her stats, I have her at 157 speed with a little bit of bulk to not die. She has way too much effectiveness, you only need 90, or 90 to 105 depending on how much you have your skill tree runes enhanced, with the rest of your stats going into attack. And for her artifact, just any attack boosting artifact works fine. If you have her imprints, I would self-imprint her. I know I have way too much effectiveness, but this is just because you don't really need the speed. If you have her on imprint and release, since you need Surin in the back slot anyways, only Carrot or Hazel, whoever's in the front, will benefit from this. Just make sure to slow them down so you don't have your speed tunings get messed up. That's it for the stats, and now we can take a look at the run.
당신에 대한 분석은 모두 끝냈습니다. 좋아해요. 제가 이길 가능성이 높습니다. 갑니다. 옥점이야. 어머나.
That is it for the Surin plus Carrot team. There is a bit of RNG in this team. We managed to do 65%, but you want to keep in mind that Surin, her S3, the debuff extension, can get resisted. So sometimes the authorities won't get extended, and that will greatly decrease your damage. Also, her S3 activation condition is a bit weird. She won't use it unless there's bleeds. There's that one turn where she uses S2, then S1, then S3. If the S1 bleeds don't land, then she won't S3. Also, Carrot has some RNG in her as well, just because her S2 landing the burn might change when you start the second authority, though I think with Surin applying that many bleeds, it's probably not going to be an issue. I would expect somewhere closer to 40%, 34% lowest I've scored. Might just be because I have Windrider on Surin now, but that's it for this team, and I think it works pretty well if you don't have Aramintha.
당신에 대한 분석은 모두 끝냈습니다.
That is it for the Rift Guide. I put up 3 teams. You can see which one you like the most, which ones you're willing to invest in, which characters you have built already, maybe. The main thing is just Carrot. You're going to use her at RC 21 anyways, so she is pretty high value. And then, if you have Robin, of course, this is all completely irrelevant. Just use Robin. You can see all of the Robin guides. But that's it for this Rift. I guess I might take a look at the F Mercedes thing for fun later. But for now, that's it. This Rift is pretty much wrapping up in terms of the teams that we're using. It's decent. I would say this one probably goes... I'm not sure whether I like it more or less than the Earth Rift, but definitely better than the first Fire Rift. Anyways, see you guys next time.